Pearson, Pepper, one of the things you guys are really having some frustration about is you have seen this from a different point of view in that, Pearson, you didn't take it quite as seriously as Pepper did. And now
That's
you're a
right.
little bit on the same page. But Robin, you said you totally feel Pepper when she's saying what she was saying.
Yes, Pepper. I feel so many of the things that you just said. So I won't go into everything, but there are a few things that really touched my heart. When you apologized for being a controller, I wanted to say, no, don't apologize for being a controller because I'm somewhat of a controller as well. I'll just admit it. I'm a controller. And this is probably one of the times I believe that you should be a controller. This is something that none of us have ever gone through, this pandemic, this horrible virus. And so, yes, just celebrate being a controller and being in control of your environment, of your health, and the health of your husband, Pearson. So celebrate being a controller and stand firm on that because that's what I'm doing. I really believe in isolation in this quarantine and all of the rules. And Pearson, you may believe that you cannot trust all of the news, but everything they're all saying, though, is for our health and for our safety. So celebrate the control factor in your personality. And then also, everything that you said, I kept thinking of a quote that I have, say a lot of the times. If you really love me, don't entertain my enemies. And the way I relate to that here is you see this virus and you see the other people he's going up to, he's entertaining when he goes out to visit your enemies. And Pearson, if you could just think of it that way, that every time you just forget about her feelings when you allow someone in your home or you go to someone else's home or you even interact with anyone, you're bringing her concerns and her worries back to her without even thinking of her. That's the way I'm feeling for you, Pepper. And I just hope that
Thank you.
helps a little bit.
That's awesome. That's an awesome perspective. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And
Yeah, that helps me too, Robin.
Thank you.
and all of us, the four of us here, are in the age group that is higher risk
That's so
if
true.
something does happen. The risk reward ratio is just not worth it. The ratio just doesn't work out. And it really gets down to acknowledging the situation very specifically, where the two of you can sit down and say, look, we don't have to think exactly the same way, but we do need to acknowledge that we both want the same thing. We both want to come
Yes.
through this as healthy and happy as we possibly can. And that means physically and emotionally. You don't want to come through this where at the end of it, you have resentment towards one another because
Right.
you're blaming Pepper or Pearson for this pandemic that we're in and all the fallout that comes from it. We're victims of this, not perpetrators. You two are in this together. And even though you may not react to it exactly the same, you do recognize that both of you are being victimized here. You're not perpetrators, so you should really have each other's back on this, even if you do it a little bit differently.
It's so true.
Yes, yes. I've come to that conclusion belatedly, but now I take it pretty seriously, and so I've sort of changed my tune.
But the
Yeah.
problem is, how do we deal with this?
Well, and one of the things that, and you guys probably know this, and I suspect you probably teach it as well, but one of the things that I really recommend is when you guys talk about this, use I statements instead of you statements. In other words, Pearson, instead of saying to Pepper, you are controlling, you are wanting me to do this, instead you can say, I feel this way. I feel like I'm being controlled or trapped. I own my feelings. So you can say how you feel, not how she's behaving. If you can use I statements instead of you statements, then you're not violating one of Gottman's four horsemen uh, that really seal the fate of a marriage.